I want to share with you something that has pretty much become a cure for overthinking for me. And for me, kind of overthinking feels like an engine in my brain kicking off and starting just an endless waterfall of thoughts, of worries, of potential scenarios and situations, and endless possibilities of things going wrong and what happens if this, what happens if that, what if it doesn't work out, what if this. Basically, it can feel quite overwhelming. This usually gets me right as I'm laying down in bed to try to sleep, where kind of the distractions go away. No phone, no TV, no music. My mind's at peace, and that's where I can feel it the most, where basically it just gets going and doesn't stop. And this is something that comes and goes for me, at least. Usually, when life gets hectic, when something happens, when pressure or tension or basically something in life happens that comes to the surface much more. I used to struggle with it a lot when I was younger, and now I have I feel like I'm a little bit more in control of my mind. I've gotten to know how my mind works, so I'm able to manage it a little bit better, kind of be my own best friend and just talk to myself and rationalize it and understand it and try to balance out a lot of those thoughts. But overthinking is a tricky one because it's really hard to just stop thinking. You don't control the thoughts that are popping up. You don't control how much of them there are and what ones are popping up. And something that helped me a lot was meditation, although that's not the thing I want to focus on in this video. Meditation is quite helpful to find a way to bring your mind to a more neutral state, not necessarily empty, but more neutral state where you're observing your own thoughts and allowing them to happen, acknowledge them, bring your attention back to your breathing, and then continuously, if you do it long enough, you're able to kind of not get sucked into that pattern of endless thoughts and possibilities. However, what I've been experiencing recently, meditation doesn't seem to work because my brain is in overdrive so much that meditating just seems, it helps a little bit, but it's still, the thoughts are still popping up. So if you've experienced something like that, I hope you give this one a chance to try it out pretty much. So what basically has helped me a lot, which is almost like it feels just crazy. It's like my mind can go from going on 6th gear and just rattling out endless thoughts to pretty much dropping down to gear 1, where it's still on my mind, but it feels much more controlled and calm. So what it is basically, because your brain works in a way where, I don't know exactly how it works, but basically it's a closed off loop. Whatever's in your head, that's kind of what anxiety in a way can be. It's basically, you worry about something and then you start worrying about different things that could happen, and then there's an endless amount of things that could happen. So you have an endless loop of things that could happen that are worrisome or make you feel nervous or whatever. And it's really kind of easy to start worrying about the fact that you're worrying, and then you're on this like vicious loop of more overthinking and more anxiety. So something that helps me a lot is kind of breaking that loop by spilling out my thoughts onto a piece of paper with just a pen. And at first it didn't feel right. It feel kind of too simple or too shallow to be actually helpful. And this is something I've been doing for a long time as well. First, it was to help me generally with mental health, and then it ended up being a part of my creativity ritual, pretty much. And now it's something that I do pretty much every day, and I've gone probably through about 3 notebooks, 3 journals, pretty thick, where I'm basically just writing down my thoughts every morning. On a casual day, I'm writing 1 page. On a day like the past 3 days, where my mind's just been just so busy, where like I'm struggling to sleep because it's just going on and on and on, I'm writing 3 pages. And basically, how I see it working is this closed off loop in your mind where you have these thoughts going on. Something strange happens when you spill those thoughts from your mind onto a piece of paper. And it doesn't have to be comprehensive, it doesn't have to make sense. You can bin that piece of paper afterwards, it doesn't matter. It's about the act of taking your thoughts that are intangible, that are kind of elusive in your brain, and making them real on a piece of paper. And it's the act of putting your thoughts onto the piece of paper through a pen, where once you take it out of your mind and it's on a piece of paper, it's like you're emptying that thought onto that physical thing. And it's just, every time I do it, my mind just empties. It's literally like the bucket of busy thoughts, the engine going off in my mind. It's just, everything just slows down, the bucket's emptying, and then the piece of paper is just kind of gibberish. It's everything from worrying about life and what's gonna happen to thinking about getting a new kettle and kind of deducting financial equations. So it's anything, and it's kind of strangely therapeutic, and that's the benefit of it from a mental health perspective. And I honestly would recommend, if you're feeling, whether it's anxiety or overthinking or just a busy mind, or just want to solve a problem or something's on your mind, writing it out on a piece of paper, it's just work. It's like magic, and it's hard to explain until you try it. And honestly, it takes 5 minutes. So I do that every morning. And what I've tried to do recently is do it like an hour or two before bed. So I'm also kind of emptying my mind before bed, and that also helps. Basically, the difference is kind of baffling in a way, of laying down in bed now without journaling. My mind feels so busy, and once I journal, ideally in the morning and in the evening, I can lay down in bed and the thoughts are still there. I'm still present of them, but they don't feel as abrasive. They're not as prominent, as strong. They're just there, and they don't overtake my whole attention. I don't get stuck in the loop of thinking about them. They just kind of appear, and I become aware of them. I'm like, oh yeah. And then I'm like, I've already written it out on a piece of paper, so my brain's almost processed those things. So it's helped me tremendously in terms of my mental health and overthinking recently. But also, it's something that the book, or the author of the book, The Artist's Way, recommends as one of the 2 main principles of recovering and rediscovering your own creativity again. It's basically a way of kind of releasing the tension of your logical brain. So your brain kind of logically tries to make sense of everything going on. And this is where kind of anxiety and worries and overthinking come in place, because it's all your logical, rational brain trying to make sense of everything. And according to the author, that can stifle your creativity, because your brain's too much It's dominated by the logical rational brain. So to clear up that rational logical brain, you journal or you write down basically all your thoughts, anything that's on your mind. You just keep writing. She recommends 3 pages, and then afterwards, your brain basically has more space to focus on the creative aspect of functioning, of working, and it it is doing something for sure. I wasn't skeptical, but maybe it didn't feel like it was worth it. I was like, writing a page, she recommends 3 pages a day. I was like, you know, what can I actually do type of thing. And now that I've been doing it for a little bit, it's helpful in so many ways. It's kind of like a journal to myself about my own experiences. It's like I'm having a conversation with myself about the things I'm going through that help me to process things. And then I also talk about my goals, my craft and making music and all that stuff is just kind of straightening it out. I think it's kind of an equivalent of having a conversation with someone you really trust, of like whether it's a conversation with a therapist or a partner or a best friend or a parent, where like something's on your mind and you speak to them and then they make you feel understood and seen and heard, and maybe they'll give you some advice. And then after you leave, you're like, oh yeah, that wasn't actually so bad. I kind of see it clearer now. It kind of makes sense now. It's kind of the weight's off my shoulders. That's kind of similar feeling I get from journaling. So lots of benefits there. It takes between 5 and 15 minutes to write a page or 3. And the more I'm doing it, the more I'm appreciating it. And I would recommend you giving it a shot too, kind of as a practice for yourself that might help you with your mental health, might help you with overthinking and anxiety. It might help you creatively by freeing up the space of the logical brain and allowing your creative brain to be free and creative. So yeah, I'll leave you with this, and yeah, I hope you consider this. I hope you journal. I hope you spill your thoughts on a piece of paper and free up that space and get a clearer mind and more creative. And yeah, thanks for watching, and go make some stuff.